Okay, 22 goals were scored across 8 matches. The midweek in the first leg of the Champions League qualifiers, there were 5 away wins and 3 home wins. Milan, Monaco, Sporting, and Brest, they had no share of those. Good day, our viewers at home. Welcome to another episode of the Let Go podcast. My name is Samson, and you are familiar with my panelists already. Yinka,
Good
Milan
evening,
could
everyone.
not. Good evening.
Good
Milan
evening, Samson.
could not tick your prediction. What do you have to say? Let's start from there.
Well, I did mention that the jury is still out on Milan because it's difficult to really put them here or there in terms of performance. I've not really seen much, to suggest that performance has improved. But I was hoping that with the firepower that they have in front and the additional quality that they got in the January transfer market, that they would bring home a win against Feyenoord. I saw the game. I think that Feyenoord were the better side on the balance of play. Milan did try their best, but in terms of wanting that game and the desire to win that match, I think that Feyenoord offered more, and that eventually was what brought home the win. Feyenoord should have scored more, so I think Milan still have everything to turn the game around in the second leg. Feyenoord did have some chances in the first leg to score more, but not taking that might end up hurting them. But they would need to perform at 100%.
I'm still coming back to you on what will happen, what you think will happen in the next leg. Ahmed, the Fabulous Four, João Felix, Rafael Leao.
Fantastic Four, you mean?
Are they fantastic or fabulous? Which one?
Fantastic Four.
Fantastic Four. Rafael Leao, João Felix, Santiago Gimenez, and Christian Pulisic. They were far from fantastic on the night. Was it a wrong call to start all 4 at the same time?
Yes, I think very wrong. Reason being that by starting all 4, the team has lost a very important factor, which is balance. We ran off the park yesterday. We had just 2 midfielders in Reinders and Fofana, and we had 4 ultra attacking players up front that provided little cover. We saw Walker very exposed. We saw a lot of things. Our defense was very exposed yesterday. So I think Conceição threw away caution, playing all 4 at the time away in Feyenoord. I expected him to have gone into the game with a bit of caution, not go all out. That was quite disrespectful to our opponent, and we had to pay for that. But luckily for us, it wasn't more than just a goal loss. So corrections can be made. And the surprising part is as much as Milan were disappointing, Feyenoord could just score 1 from a minor error. So those are little positives Milan can take away from the bout, from the encounter. So they should pick that up as positive going into the second leg encounter. But starting all 4 was a wrong thing. So that was playing to the gallery. It threw away caution and a key factor, which is balance. Reinders and Fofana were totally outrun. We had no answers for their consistent aggression. So those are things to look out for going into the second leg tie.
Speaking of disappointing, Sporting were disappointing on the night. On Tuesday or Wednesday, I can't remember when they had their match. They lost by 3 goals to Dortmund.
That was on Wednesday.
But then, away at Etihad, Ederson was the kingmaker of disappointment. Yinka, I want to believe you saw that match.
Yes, I
At
did.
two at two
I
one
saw the match.
at 2-1 City leading. Did you expect that turnaround?
Well, I think what I would say is I did not expect City to go 2-1 up because that second half in particular, I think Real Madrid really upped the tempo
Yes.
and they really applied a bit of pressure on Man City. So at 1-1, I was expecting Madrid to take the lead. But it happened that City got the lead from through a penalty, and one would expect that, given the way that their season has been over the last couple of months or 3 months, they would at least do what was needed to protect that lead and not still try to play this expressive football that we've known them. Before you can express yourself on the field, you have to be mentally all right. You have to be in the right space. And as you already know, I've been saying for weeks now that I think that City's problem is psychological. So mentally, I do not believe that they are in the right space. In situations like this, when you are not psychologically, you know, at 100%, you have to grind out results. When you need to defend and sit deep, you have to do that. And people might say that Pep, has his philosophy and has his own way of playing. But anyone that has seen Pep at Man City knows that there were times that he has played defensive football. I remember,
Yeah.
I think it was Atleti versus Man City
Yes.
at the Wanda Metropolitano. Pep
Boko
went there
Haram
and,
football.
he did what he needed to do and he got the results that he needed to get. So, in situations like this, you just need to do what is needed. I think that they thought they were going to overwhelm. And with Real Madrid, you can never say, never say the game is over. Real Madrid did what we've known them to always do and turn the game around.
If I revisit our predictions from the last episode, Yinka, you were the closest. In fact, you had the exact prediction, then you changed your mind. But then you predicted a Madrid win. Ahmed predicted both teams to score and over 2.5, and I predicted City to win either half. I think the three of us got our predictions right, but
You predicted a City win.
no, City to win either half.
Oh, okay, okay.
I predicted the City to win. He predicted the City to win either half.
And
Yes.
we
Oh,
won
okay.
the first half. Ahmed, just
All
be
right.
careful.
It has been
So,
established that you have a City bias.
nah, well, our viewers will decide that if I have a City bias. So, Ahmed, this is for you now. Individual errors ultimately cost City on the night. For the third goal, especially, Ederson had no business coming out. I can't even remember the Madrid 2-2 equalizer, but the third goal,
That was
Ederson
the
had,
Brahim Diaz follow-up after Ederson
right
parried the ball.
after
Yes.
Ederson
Back
parried the
into
ball
play.
straight back into play.
Yes.
So two individual errors cost City that match. I know we've done stay or go for City, and I think you said we should keep Ederson. Considering this trend that you are seeing, do you still believe that Ederson should be kept at the end of the season?
All right. This Man City situation is beginning to sound like a broken record because we always have to revisit. One thing I would say is one thing that is very consistent with this City side uh, recently has been errors. Uh, Yesterday it was, I'm sorry, 2 days ago it was the turn of Ederson. Uh, Over the weekend against Arsenal, it was Akonji. 2 weekends ago, it was the new signing, Kusanov. So, like Yinka just said, there is something wrong mentally with this side. I wouldn't put it all on Ederson, but something is broken in this team. something is broken mentally. So the errors are always there. And you would see they went up thanks to a questionable penalty, so to say. There was some doubt about the authenticity of that penalty awarded. But they always keep making these errors. We saw one over the weekend against Leyrot Orient in the FA Cup.
Leighton Orient.
God bless you, Yeka. Their first goal was an own goal. You understand? So that has been part and parcel with this City side. So I think the actual major issue is their mentality at this point, their psychological well-being. It goes beyond their ability, so to say. So that is where I think the
Okay,
problem is coming from.
Yinka, how do you come out of this kind of psychological slump?
Well, apart from the fact that they might need a professional therapist or something, I think that
Extreme.
the best way to come out of a psychological slump, at least from the perspective when you look at it from issues that are happening on the field, is to just keep things simple. I think that when you try to overcomplicate things, you just end up digging yourself into a deeper hole. When you need to defend, everybody needs to defend as a team. We know that City have, for lack of a better word, a brand, a way that they like to play. But at this point, I think that should be secondary to them. Everybody needs to come together. If they need to have a meeting among themselves, in the dressing room, and figure out a way to work together as a team. I mentioned last week, or was it 2 weeks ago, that I've noticed a lot of individual, play, a lot of reliance on individual play in their game. And that is something that often happens with teams, teams that are disjointed, teams that are not quite there, mentally. So to get yourself out of it, you need to come together, talk about these things, and then on the field, you keep things as simple as possible. Um, the most important thing would be to get the win now, not the performance, because they are so obsessed with winning and winning in a particular way. Just keep winning, keep winning, keep winning. By the time you win, say 4 or 5 games in a row, confidence returns, and you can then start doing, those beautiful things that you like to do. So just keep this thing simple. That's on the field, and then if they need to see a therapist off the field, that's up to Man City to decide.
Unfortunately, simple and Guardiola do not mix.
I think Ancelotti says something like that Guardiola is always trying to do something new every time he has met him.
There's nothing simple about Guardiola. If he's not inverting something, he is reversing something. I don't know. Hopefully, he sees this episode and takes Yinka's advice. Let us talk about other results. Uh, Juventus got a 2-1 win, a good win, something to take to PSV next week. Yinka predicted a Juve win or draw. Ahmed predicted a Juve win. I predicted both
I'll
teams to
try to win.
score. I think the three of us got our predictions right. It is fair to say that Ahmed predicted 5 matches last episode and he got 4 predictions correct. Yinka predicted 7 and he got 3 correct. I predicted 7 and I also ended up with 3 correct answers. So we need to watch out for Ahmed. He's using something.
The octopus in the building.
So Juve got a win. Practically, you can say PSG have qualified. They got a 3-goal lead away at
Away.
Brest. Yes. Dortmund also got 3 goals away at Sporting. I believe that is enough to see them through. Bayern got a 2-1 win away at Celtic. With their firepower, I don't think the second leg should be a, a problem for them. Unfortunately, our own Atalanta was dubiously beaten at Club Brugge. They lost by 2 goals to 1. In fact, I think okay, Yinka got that wrong. Yinka said Atalanta win and over 1.5 goals. I just said over 2 goals. There was a contentious penalty call. But then, Yinka, let's talk about the second leg now. Do you see Atalanta turning this around?
Well, in Bergamo, it's something that you would expect. Although I have to also point out that Club Brugge has really surprised me this season. I do not follow the Belgian league that much, so it's come as a surprise, the way they've handled some of the matches that they've been involved in the Champions League this season. City did beat them in the final game of the group stage, but they had to really sweat for that win. They were not particularly impressive in that game. And against Atalanta, even though the penalty was questionable, um, before the game, I expected a very straightforward win for Atalanta. So for Atalanta to have struggled like that until the dying minutes of the game before even losing the game, then it means that Club Brugge might actually have something that can worry, at least a few teams. But in Bergamo, with the fans behind Atalanta, as long as Atalanta are able to feel their strongest side, I expect them to do just enough to qualify. I would be very surprised. There's a slight chance that Club Brugge could pick up a draw, but I would still be surprised if that happens. So I'll be tipping Atalanta to qualify. But I've said I want to stay away from predicting straight wins, so I'll just say Atalanta most likely to qualify.
Yinka, we'll still put you on the spot. We are going to predictions and we are not doing qualifier or no qualifier. Ahmed, Feyenoord is coming home to San Siro. At least 70,000 fans will be expecting them. Do you think? Okay, before I even ask you about the outcome of second leg, in the first leg, did you think Milan missed the energy of Yunus Musa?
Yes, because there is someone that midfield, so to say, who has that ability to cover ground, sacrifice himself. He might be lacking technically, so to say, but he's someone who makes up for that with a lot of hard work. We've seen him being sacrificed as a pseudo right back in many games to do the extra work of picking up our opponent's schema. If he was on the field yesterday, I believe Walker would have some sort of cover, and while not abandoning his own role in midfield, Musa is that kind of player. So just like I said, Conceição did away with balance and other factors and went for the audacious. I don't know if he was listening to the Italian media, because that word has been thrown around since the end of last weekend. Fantastic four, and he went ahead to do exactly just that. Nevertheless, I expected us to do better, because if we had followed Feyenoord recently, they've been struggling. In fact, as much as I followed Pashao personally too, I knew he's that player who has the ability to hurt you on the stage. But I have not seen him give this kind of performance. That was a one-off, I would say to you. If you have followed them recently, they played recently a key game against Ajax. They lost woefully, I would say, because performance was dreadful. But seeing that side against Milan, they had unbelievable energy. They kept coming at us. So I expect a different side in Italy. I expect Milan
Okay.
to come back if they do play to their strengths.
Finally, Ahmed, in San Siro, should the Fantastic Four retain their spot?
They definitely should not. They definitely should not.
But you are at home. Oh.
Definitely, we need subs too. Imagine the game went the way it did. There was no one to come into the game to change things up. We only had to rely on Kamada, and I still don't understand why we keep insisting on bringing on Kamadas on days like this. I would rather keep Leao on the pitch to see full 90 minutes than throw in a Kamada. What difference would Kamada make? I would rather leave Leao and allow him play the full 90 minutes than throw in a Kamada.
Ahmed,
So
calm
I
down.
would
Ahmed, calm
I
down,
would still
calm
not
down,
start
calm
all
down.
four. Reason being that we need game changers on the bench. That came to play against Empoli. We had the luxury of throwing in Pulisic and Rafael Leao, and their introduction changed the game. You understand? So we need factors like that. I would not start all four at once. Not especially now that Joao Felix is trying to ease into the system. He is still trying to find his consistency. So I would not throw all my cards out, except we are running into the 70th minute mark and there's desperation in the air. Those are the times you take such decisions, not at the start of games.
Yinka, do you agree?
Well, even though I'm of the opinion that a coach should always start his best players, I would agree with Ahmed that starting all four in a game like that might hurt Milan. Reason being that I saw the Feyenoord versus Milan game, and I noticed that Feyenoord are very fast on the counter. Committing 4 players in attack means that you would lose something defensively, especially when the 4 players are ultra attacking players. Rafael Leao contributes next to nothing defensively. Pulisic tries every once in a while. Joao Felix is not so good defensively. I don't expect Gimenez to do much defensively as well. So you're losing about 4 players, and even though they might give you, much in terms of attacking and possibly pressing, if Feyenoord are able to beat that press, it could spell doom for Milan, defensively. They're quite good on the counter, so I wouldn't advise, starting off for in the second leg. I think that Milan still have enough to beat them, even if they do not start off for. If by say 55, 60 minutes, they are still not able to get the goal, then you can then throw the kitchen sink at them and try to get the win. But to start with them, I wouldn't advise that. I'm not sure who Milan plays in Serie A this weekend though. So
Hellas
it lots
Verona.
will depend on that.
Verona,
Hellas Verona. So they should be
at
able to
home.
rest players against Verona, and then make decisions on who should start against Feyenoord in the Champions League.
Well, enough said about the Champions League. The second legs will be taking place on the 18th and 19th. A lot of teams still have a lot of teams to play for. Monaco lost at home to Benfica uh, by a goal to nil, even though they went down a man. Uh, that is still an interesting fixture, and anything can happen in that fixture. Moving on now to La Liga. Ahmed called it perfectly 1-1, the Madrid derby. Personally, that game was a game of two halves. Atletico Madrid had the first half, while Real Madrid came back roaring in the second half. In fact, Atletico Madrid could have gone 2 or 3 goals ahead in the first half. But then, that is the beauty of the Madrid derby. Uh, Yinka predicted a Madrid win. I'm not sure where his octopus was looking at. But then, Yinka, it's ended a draw. The table remains as they were. Madrid is a point ahead of Atletico. Was the outcome surprising to you?
Well, surprising would be exaggerating. Was I expecting Atleti to get a point? No. Was I surprised that they got a point? It can happen. But I do think that the penalty that they got, I can't remember, but I remember being very upset about the way that penalty was given, and that they got in that game was, a bit controversial. And like you said earlier, they performed, excellently in the first half. Madrid came in the second half and switched up the tempo and probably should have gotten more scored more than 1 goal in the entire game. But to say that the scoreline was surprising, no, I wouldn't say that. I was just hoping that, or I just thought that Madrid had enough to win that game. But it is what it is.
Ahmed, Brief comment.
Well, I expected what went down, which actually reflects my predictions. Atletico is one
Feeling
side.
like an octopus.
Leave
No,
him
no,
now.
no. I gave my reasons.
Uh-uh.
I gave my reasons
There
that
are
very
matches today now. You
I
show us the
mentioned
team again.
how Atletico has been quite dependable this season. Honestly speaking, I followed their game against Barcelona at the Camp Nou. It went in similar fashion, and they had the luxury of even picking a win very late into the game. I think it was the 97th minute, which was the exact last kick of the game. So it played out the same way against Madrid. They scored their goal and did everything to protect it. So unfortunately for them, um, Madrid came back, but they held on to their point and went through. So it was expected for me.
Okay. Briefly, we'll move to the round four of the FA Cup. And and Slot received the shock of his life when Liverpool were bundled out by Plymouth. Chelsea were also bundled out by Brighton, Mitoma, Classic. Spurs were also bundled out, but I'm not surprised. I'm not sure anybody here is surprised about that. But then Liverpool, uh, we were discussing treble here some weeks back, and now it is one less trophy. Yinka, what did you make of that result?
I think it was even quadruple that we were discussing at some point. Because they're in the Premier League race, obviously. They're
Yes,
in the Carling Cup final. They have
they are
they
doing well
had
in the
the FA
Champions
Cup
League.
to fight for, and then the Champions League. So we're talking about quadruple at some point. So now I wouldn't call it a treble because nobody regards the Carabao Cup as part of the treble, so to speak.
Okrika
Um,
treble.
but but there's nothing to say really. I guess I'm just going to say that that's the beauty of the FA Cup. Sometimes upsets like this can happen. But it just goes to show that Liverpool's backup team or reserve, so to speak, might
Yeah.
not might be way far off what in terms of what they offer, might be far off what their first team offers. Because you would expect that regardless of the opposition or regardless of how difficult that Plymouth may have come for that game, Liverpool should still have had enough quality to beat them. So in terms of
Not
maybe
not not if
mentality,
not if the squad turnover is too much.
well,
Not
regardless of the turnover, they still have the quality.
Yeah,
If you want to
they
argue,
brought in the big guns later eventually now.
if you
each
even
one
want
of
to
them
argue
just
turnover,
Nunes. Just
but
the thing with games like this is even when you don't want to field your starters, you should have one or two of them on the bench. It got to a point they wanted to introduce some senior men, but I would not lie to you, the most senior player they had in midfield was just Endo, and the rest were kindergarten kids. None of their first teamers were on the bench in midfield. You understand? So even when they were trying to chase the game and introduce the likes of Nunes, he was the only senior player on the bench. I think that was too much turnover. The likes of Robertson, they were not even on the bench. Let's say you
well,
needed them to come in
if
and
you are
change things for you.
expecting to field Robertson, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Gravenberch, and the likes
Against Plymouth.
before you can get a win against Plymouth, then what are you doing? I think that game served as a perfect opportunity to give the players a breather. They needed to rest. These players have been playing for in so many months now, and against Plymouth,
But
I think it's only logical.
those that actually got fielded are not even their second team. You
Well,
understand?
he's been using the second. He's
Please,
been
I have a
using the
Is
question. I have a
second team as
question.
they are
well.
not even the second. When we are talking of the second team, we are talking about
Did
Endo.
Chiesa play?
You understand? You said what?
Did Chiesa play?
Chiesa played. Chiesa is
Ah,
third field. People would ask me as far as Liverpool's squad is concerned. They fielded
no,
some 16-year-old academy boys. They
Chiesa
fielded
is
some
what?
70% of their starting 11 that day were the academy products, not even their second
I think that
teamers. That was
I think
too
that
much turnover as far as I'm concerned.
the only reason turnover is an excuse now is because they lost the game. If they had
Yeah,
won the game, it would have been a brilliant decision to rest the players and this and that and this. It's Plymouth for crying
Man
out
City
loud. It's
rested
Plymouth.
some players too, but they had the insurance of keeping them on the bench. So later on, you threw some of them in. You understand?
I think
Not even keeping your
Liverpool.
second teamers on the bench and going all out with your feeder players. That's too much to it. That's a lot of
Well,
disrespect to the Plymouth level.
Well, that's the beauty of the game.
I don't think it's disrespectful. They had their outstanding game against Everton to play, which they eventually drew anyways. But they had their outstanding game, which meant that they had one extra game to play more than some of their other rivals. So it was
Yes.
normal to rest
I
players.
understand you perfectly. You understand? But my point is, okay, depend on the second teamers, the second 11, not that was way below. You are bringing in babies against semi-professionals in the championship. Let me call them semi-professionals. You understand? But these guys are a bunch of
Babies and
17-year-old
Chiesa.
kids. Chiesa can't
Chiesa
do
plays.
anything on his own.
That's what I
Okay.
need.
The only department they had senior guys were
There
in
will be a
attack.
special
You
cut out
understand?
of this
They had
featuring
Diaz,
the
they had
band.
Jota, and they had Chiesa. That was the senior guys.
So they had
to say, in
Jota,
attack.
they had Diaz, and they had
Chiesa.
And Chiesa.
Chiesa. And I think that's
Then they
their
brought in
third team.
Nunes. Then they brought in Nunes.
And everywhere else, bunch
Guy.
of academy.
Ahmed, they didn't do well. They didn't do well. Ahmed,
Yeah,
they
definitely.
didn't do well.
if you are going to give me that academy excuse, I would understand it if they lost, say, 3-0, 4-0. I'll say okay.
Do you
Yes.
get?
But
They were
for you
probably
to know that the
beaten.
gap was not that much, it was just 1-0. Let's even say they mistakenly considered one. You want to tell me that an attack of Jota, Chiesa, and Diaz could not get another goal against Plymouth?
There was
Come on.
no
No, they
reason to
didn't do well.
support them.
Liverpool didn't do well. Liverpool didn't do well. Okay.
There was no reason to support them.
Still on
Guy.
Liverpool. Still on Liverpool. They eventually played their outstanding match against Everton. A very interesting match yesterday, and that
And there
match
was
ended.
Zapata moment.
That match ended 2-2, and it was an interesting match. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's the last Merseyside derby at the Goodison Park.
That's true.
I believe Everton are moving to a new stadium.
Yes.
So Liverpool are now 7 points ahead of the chasing pack. I didn't expect a draw in that match. I thought Liverpool would ram Everton. I was surprised by the result. Inka, did you share in my surprise?
Well, to be honest as well, I did not expect Liverpool to draw the game. I expected that they would win. Obviously, because they rested players for the FA Cup, and I'm very big on resting players and players' mental states before games. So the rested players for the FA Cup, obviously they have more quality, but you also have to consider motivation as well. Everton were very motivated. It
And
was
they
their
did
last
it
game
on-
or last Merseyside derby. Last Merseyside derby at the Goodison Park. They've been in form recently as well under David Moyes. So, there was always the possibility that something like this could happen. It's just that at 2-1, with a few minutes or a few seconds to go, should I say, you would expect Liverpool to bring it up. It's a shame that it happened the way it happened. But it's not all bad. 7 points is still a good lead, especially when you are fighting for the title against the strikerless Arsenal. So, I would say it's still all good.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Inka, calm down. I know you want to talk about Arsenal. Calm down. We'll get there.
No,
We'll
I
get
don't
there.
want to talk about Arsenal. Cass is not
No,
here.
no,
Cass is
no,
our
no.
Arsenal analyst.
Our in-house Arsenal analyst. Anyways, it's been an interesting roundup about the Champions League, about the league fixtures across Europe. To our viewers at home, please engage our YouTube videos. We need your feedback. We need your comments. We need your subscription, most importantly. and we need your engagement overall on all our social media platforms. Thank you. Have a wonderful
Ciao.
night rest.